still having a hard time falling asleep, and I just thought I would talk about this because, I mean, do I need to try to make sense of it? I'm not sure that I can completely, but, in trying to trying to kind of understand whatever the kind of Eastern European roots that we have and all that, well, what did I do? I looked up a name, I looked up a last name that is pretty common in Georgia to see if there were people in Russia with the last name, on Find a Grave. So people who buried in Russia, and I'm guessing that it's spelled differently, perhaps, but there were only three listings. Two of the listings were the same person, and I mean, I hit the mother lode of Cold War. I mean, I have no words. I have no words for what I happened upon. So, and it ain't my shit. But I just feel I want to talk about it. All right, and Find a Grave is it's a real good place to look at history. But I was like, wow. I mean, what the hell? It's like, I mean, something for sure is going on because I don't think it would have happened upon that if there weren't something real serious going on. But that ain't my shit. All right, so I looked up I looked up a name um for Russia, to see if about people buried in Russia. And I will comment that I think it was possibly before that, or maybe just after that. A name came to mind, and I put in a search for that name, and one of the first pages to come up was a 6-year-old who had been killed at Auschwitz. All right, um, so yeah, so we're talking real serious. All right, so that was a different name than the name that I was doing a search for, but that name came to mind, and I thought I would look. And people need to not ever forget. And I mean, I mean, it's really so overwhelming, and but those things are going on now. Children have been abducted, harmed, put in solitary confinement. I mean, it's we're putting an end to it. All right, but the name that I looked for and what came up in Russia was a married couple who were spies for the Soviet Union, and um really interesting. Uh their last name was they the name that they changed their name to go by was um I don't know what to think about that. Not a name that people would probably be familiar with as far as espionage or people being accused of espionage. All right, so but it's the name of a grocery store chain. All right, so I went from there to reading about, in the pages there were other people's names, and then looking at other pages. So I saw these different pages of people who have been involved, and then physicists, nuclear physicists, including one who studied with Max Born. And I have talked a lot about that book, the Into the Certain World, and that being a book that people, I really wish everyone had read, many years ago. How about that? But uh, I mean, it was really kind of an amazing little journey through some history, some espionage, and they were convicted of espionage in this country. But then I think, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a trade, so they were traded to, and they lived free in the Soviet Union. So at least that's what it looked like to me. And so there were some things that went on like that with trades among people being, who were in prison. And um, but uh, it looked like there was some pretty bad mess that went on in this country. It looks like confusion. You know, interrogation is the word that comes to mind. But people who, I mean, we know that that was a bad time and a real bad mess in this country, the 1950s, and with people being accused of whatever, um, you know, many people who are identify as communists or who are part of a communist party are people who care about people and are not trying to do harm. I think that's most people. And of course, there's this weird repetition. And I don't understand because there's the United States, there's Germany, there's the Soviet Union. What conflict does the United States have with the Soviet Union? I mean, can anyone make sense of that? Well, if it was about plans to develop nuclear weapons, well, it looks like some of that went on. So I'm real confused about how I'm a little bit confused. I saw something about microdots, and I thought about that it. Do I want to see something like that? I mean, I suppose if there was the technology to develop nuclear bombs, there also was that kind of technology. All right, so so some espionage history, which and it's like, I mean, that is overwhelming. I have found some really overwhelming stuff because I don't want to read that shit. Not really. I mean, people were killed over that. The Rosenbergs were executed, accused of espionage and executed. Um, but it was quite a little journey through some history, uh, that, and then a nuclear physicist, and um, I mean, wow, um, a monarch, someone that had been involved in World War One, a Communist Party leader in Germany who came from working class roots and I think maybe lost parents as a child. And and then more people in physics, including in academia, and people who had fled the Holocaust. At least one person who had fled the Holocaust. So I mean, it was just a huge amount of history, all from looking for a name that's a familiar name to me, but trying to sort of find what are our Eastern European roots, because there has to be something, even though I, people haven't talked about it. And again, I know on our mom's side, there's you know our ancestor, where we are ninth generation. My brothers and I are ninth generation from the ancestor. And it's an Eastern European and a name that you find in Eastern European and Germany, and where there were people with that last name who were killed in the Holocaust. I mean, um, so what's it all about? Well, I mean, I'm just gonna say it's stressful, because it made it so I can't sleep. Well, I mean, I don't feel that relaxed. I would like to feel relaxed, but I didn't feel physically good today. My heart has not been feeling good. I've had some of that pain in my head. And I just wonder, whose beast of burden am I? Because I think there has to be some of that, and I'm not okay with being a beast of burden. I'm not okay with it. And I'm sure being a beast of burden, I am not the only person who's been forced to. I mean, what am I doing? I'm trying to survive, keeping my mind active, talking, reading and talking. And I feel like that's almost all that I do. Read, talk, read, talk. And yeah, I mean, again, I think, wow. I mean, I don't think that I would have happened upon that information if something real serious were not going on. And I saw a name that is a name and part of a word and some things like that were over the past, I don't know exactly what time frame. I could say the past few years is like, well, I saw that and that sort of tells me. I mean, I'm surprised at just how wrong a person can go. I will say that. And that when you try to help there be guardrails, that person disregards the guardrails or just tries to harm you. I mean, and you know that that intention is in that person. And yeah, so does it have anything to do with that? And it's like, wow. I mean, I I earned an undergraduate degree in biology. Not a real high GPA. I was working plenty when I was an undergrad. I was working towards an undergraduate degree in art and was not allowed to complete it, not because of professors, but circumstance. I could put it that way, I suppose. I was harmed very badly. I kept on and tried to put my life back together, which really had been reduced to rags and fragments. How about that? I mean, no, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. And, then supporting someone towards the goal I had wanted for myself. And it's just not okay. It's not okay what was taken from me. And it wasn't only then. Returning to graduate school to earn a degree to help protect children and families, not being hired as anything other than a substitute teacher, working as a clairvoyant for 6 years. And just, I mean, fucking refusing to give up my life. Refusing to give up my life. And I just, I think the fact that I could say I happened upon all that information, I think, yeah, there's something real serious going on. And, you know, uh, there's not, if my life is ever restored at all, there ain't going to be no excuse at all for the way I have been treated. And that is true of everyone who has been harmed by ICE and people who are living in fear. That is part of that too. There's nothing that's ever going to make that okay. We are not here to be martyrs and things like that. We aren't here to be used. We are not here to be harmed. So no matter what happens, it's not going to be okay because doing harm to people doesn't make anything better at all. So basically, we are surviving. We are surviving. And I suppose a person could say, we're waiting for immature adults to get their rocks off enough so that they can either kick it or get their fucking shit together. Well, I don't really think it's going to be getting their shit together. And, kicking it, I don't know about that. But, there are persons doing harm that are completely, I mean, nothing stopped them. And there are people who are existing and trying to exist who are being persecuted in a real big way. Many people living in poverty. And I just think about this and I think about the lack of conscience. A person that won't acknowledge the Holocaust, a person that won't look at that history, and a person that doesn't care. And I could say a person that doesn't understand why there was a need for a nation state to protect people who were persecuted extremely badly, and that is historical. Anyone that doesn't have sensitivity about that, I mean, do I want to try to design lessons? I don't think that's within my. I mean, I'm sure there are people who can do better at that than I can. But you know, am I saying that there's not war going on that's extremely harmful? No, I am not saying that. But why is that going on? I mean, I'm going to say it's just in part, it is a continuation of anti Semitism, and it's just a continuation of what went on during the Holocaust, plus people from these continents being persecuted and people who've come as refugees being persecuted and immigrants from all over the world. And we are stopping it. But, knowing it's real important not to minimize the potential for it just to get worse and worse. And when people are on that wanting to do harm, that's the direction it goes. So yeah, well, I would say that was a mother lode. That was quite a mother lode. And I think about Oak Ridge history, and I think about, I mean, a whole lot. And I remind myself, I mean, you've been abused and you have been harmed beyond that, perhaps, if there's a beyond that, and you have been used and your life matters and everyone's life matters, but some adults really need some adult education. I could put it that way. And, what's the best teacher? I mean, there's a question. Is it humans? Is it nature? what might it be? I don't think it's tech. But anyhow, yeah, I mean, that's some real serious history because people, as far as the espionage, there are people who were accused of espionage and again were executed. No one should ever forget that. And yeah, I mean, why are we here? Again, we're not here to cause suffering, and we're also not here to suffer. Humans are, we're here to take care of each other. So I know there's plenty of people who understand that, and yeah, but with the people that don't understand that, I mean, there is a need for some teaching. Could I put it that way?